Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is our last episode of 2025 for the Domestique Hot Seat. And what we thought would be cool, seeing as this is our first year with the podcast, is to do a bit of a highlights of the year, a bit of a year in review, if you will. And so, without further ado, here are what we think are the highlights from each interview this year. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click, there should be a little card that can take you to the interview should you choose to go to that specific interview. Otherwise, if you're watching it on your regular podcast platforms, hey, why not do some scrolling back through, and we will be back with you pretty much straight away next year. The scoring never stops. Anyway, let's do it. This is the Hot Seat 2025 year in review. So, look, the year started off, halfway through the year, really, and our first guest was none other than Amanda Spratt, straight-up legend, absolute champion, and we had a chat about what's changed in the time that someone like a veteran like Spratty has been in the peloton. So, let's do it. Starting with that and then moving all the way through to now, what do you think the biggest difference in the women's peloton is between when you started, that was 2000, and now?
Chalk and cheese. It's just professionalized so much. I think, the first year, as I mentioned, I think we had 11, 12 riders and we were doing most of the races, but so were national teams, and there were not that many big teams at that time. Just the resources we had weren't a lot. Like, we would never fly to a race. We'd always be driving. I had times where we were in Holland for one race. We drove through the night back to Italy to the base. We arrived at 6 a.m. and then the next afternoon we then drove back up to Belgium for racing just to save a bit of money. If I look at it now, and I think especially the last sort of 4-5 years, especially, that women's cycling has just developed exponentially. And I think having the Tour de France Femme, I think that's been a big one, because that's a race that everybody in the world knows, everybody wants to watch, and straight away sponsors have jumped on board and seen the value in sponsoring a women's team. So for me, I think that's been a big one. And I think a lot of people said when the UCI put the regulations about the Women's World Tour and the minimum salary and the conditions, a lot of people thought, this is going to kill like half the teams. But actually, in the end, most of the teams, I think, have managed to step up and sponsors have come on board. So I think just having that little bit of a push as well has actually been really helpful. Now in the early days, my parents were following on Twitter desperately for any kind of update. And now mostly they can watch at least some of all of my races and be terribly sleep deprived most of the year. Sorry, mum and dad. But so I think, also now I think you're seeing the level is so high because everybody in these teams is a full-time cyclist. Like, in the early years as well, people were having a job and then training when they can and then racing, whereas now everyone are full-time athletes. So I think that's another reason why the speed, the power, the racing, the level is just getting higher and higher. So, I mean, it's almost like a different sport from when I started. It's like the equivalent of going, I don't know, like club racing all the way up to all of a sudden like world class. It's almost how it feels when I look back on it.
As a cycling fan, I think it's a real treat to get to see women's cycling, I would say, having its renaissance. I think it's only going to go up from here, but I think what we're seeing at the moment is really, really exciting. And every year the races seem to get better, the riders seem to get stronger. How does it make you feel as someone who has laid that track, I guess? So you have been through the dark days, the hard times where, you might have had to have a part-time job, and now you've got riders like, let's say, Kat Ferguson, who's coming through at 18 years old, signing a professional contract, and she's very deserving of it. I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, but she's probably not working a part-time job. How does that make you feel? Are you proud, or are you a little bit resentful that wasn't laid, or that wasn't available more when you were there? How does that rub for you?
Yeah, I think resentment, no. Like, honestly, I don't feel any resentment. I think I feel proud that I've been part of this and been through all these stages. And also I feel grateful for even the riders before me, like riders like who's now my director, like Ina Teutenberg, even like in Australia, like Liz Heppel, Donna Ray-Zielinski, people like this who have really been through in the earlier days and helped like to make what women's cycling is now. But I think, yeah, it would be easy to feel resentment, but honestly, I just feel like proud and grateful to have been through this and to been a part of it and really feel like I've left my mark there and helped the sport come to this level. So I think, yeah, pride is the main one I feel. And I think, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great that young riders can come in now and come onto a professional team and make a living. And that's how it should be. So I think we've still got a way to go, but I think we're in a really good spot and I'm proud to be part of it.
How do you find how are you handling the challenge of keeping up with some of these? This growth is exponential. Every year you must be showing up to races and thinking far out. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. You're at home training and you're like, yep, cool. I'm on form, going well.
Pushing your best numbers
And
kind of
then you
thing.
go to
Yeah.
the races and you're like, oh, God, everyone stepped up a level. But honestly, I
Yeah.
feel like it's happening a lot now. Like the level is honestly getting higher and higher every year. I can say that I'm doing a lot of my best numbers ever, and it's still not good enough a lot of the time. But I'm grateful to be in a team with Little Trek where the experience also is really valued. And I know like a lot of the time I can be road captain or supporting our younger riders and still really play an important role there. And then there are times when I do get chances, like for example, in Spain in May, I had a chance to be a leader there and was fourth in Burgos, which was a really big result for me. So I can still do it when I need to, but it's nice to have like differing roles. But I think with the level rising, it still just makes me feel motivated to push myself and to get better. And yes, the gains are not as big anymore. I'm on the older, more experienced side of things now, but it still just keeps me motivated, I think, and on my toes because yeah, I don't want to be getting dropped on the first climb or like I really enjoy being part of the team and pushing myself and aiming for top results with my teammates.
Yeah, I mean, just being very humble here, but just so everyone knows, 15th in the Tour de Suisse overall. I've got you 5th in the mountains classification at the Vuelta Burgos, 4th in the general classification, 2nd in the mountains classification in Itzulia Women, and 6th in the general classification. Having 11th in the mountains and 7th in overall at the Tour Down Under, it's not exactly like your results are slipping. Certainly managing to stay up as best you can. It's absolutely fantastic. Next up was Michae Storer. Now, this might sound a bit crazy now, but I remember being so nervous going into this interview. This was my second interview on the platform, and this was a dude that had ridden the men's Tour de France that year and had done really well. And I remember starting this being, quite anxious. But anyway, it was an awesome chat. And there was really, I think, one thing that stood out here.
I look back fondly on stage 6 when I was third. Just because there's another one of those days where like we didn't talk about me going in the breakaway in the team meeting. Like, we had some funny analogies, like they're like Michael's still in the fridge staying fresh. Like they'd say, just put Michael in the fridge until like stage 10. But then like I saw how the race was like developing. I think it took like over 2 hours to go on the breakaway. Like I'd followed 0 attacks because I didn't want to go on the breakaway. I was just there to get to the finish. And then I'm just in the front. There's this like uphill drag, and I'm like, got no one in it. And then, yeah, I think we covered like classic 100K in the first 2 hours or something. And then I was like, I may as well go in it, just because got no one there. And I just follow like Simon Yates into the breakaway, and then that's the move. But yeah, those days where you can just like, I done 2 hours of racing, and then you're the guy that just does one move and gets in the breakaway, you feel pretty badass. Like just seeing everyone else burn themselves, and then you're the one that like didn't even want to go, and then you just ride into it.
what's it like being in a breakaway when you know you've got someone like Tadej sniffing at your heels? Is it frustration? Are you ever just like, oh, piss off, Tadej, can you just give us this one? Or is there just sort of this, I don't know, almost resignation?
Yeah, a bit of, yeah, it's like, well, Campenaerts has been proved that you can beat him if you're on a super good day with a bit of a head start. But yeah, it's mostly resignation because then you're like, oh, like we're probably not going for the victory. And it was only him who could beat Tadej on the day. Yeah, it's a bit strange because, like, at least one day, I had some info that Tadej decided not to win that stage. So I find it a bit weird if you get your team to ride full gas all day, and then on the last climb you just decide not to win the stage. So, and then, yeah, that was maybe the other times like he genuinely couldn't. But there's one stage where he was told by his teammates that they decided not to go for it with like 3K to go. But like still, if you don't want to win the stage, decide that beforehand, let the breakaway go, and don't burn your whole team.
Yeah.
No, maybe I do old school, but like, to me that makes a lot more sense because then you could see that UAE was on their knees by the end of the race, like, and also Tadej as well was tired. So it's not defensive racing if you ride full gas.
So next up was Kim Cadzow, and aside from leaving thinking she's pretty special, people like Kim, I don't feel like come across, you don't come across people like her that often. She was just a really warm, really kind person and certainly came across really genuine. But Kim had come out against cycling and I guess the prevalence of eating disorders and the normalization of eating disorders. And so I felt like that was the thing to talk about. So I want to contextualize why I'm interested in this. So when I was in high school, I really struggled with my weight. And sort of around the time I was 14, I started skipping meals. I'd leave lunches at home or trade them away to friends. I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I definitely had one. And when I found cycling in the early 20s, my early 20s, one of the things that really attracted me to it was that it was not normal, or it was normalized to not eat. So I would often skip meals at work. And when people would say, oh, why are you, it's lunch, why are you eating a rice cracker? Well, it's for cycling. And it gave me an excuse mechanism because people equated cycling with healthy. And so they didn't question what were obvious signs of an eating disorder because, oh, well, it must be something that's linked to being healthy. So I am doing better now. I'm always a bit disappointed with the way that I look, but I'm certainly, I've accepted. I'm a dad now and there's limitations around what I can do. And I also just really like chocolate. So I'm coming to terms with it. But with this, you put out an Instagram during the tour and it really struck home to me because it's something that was very real to me. So in that, you talked about things like losing your hair, brittle bones, poor body function. Do you want to talk to that and your experience in this space?
Yeah, I think, now I'm not as afraid of saying it. I think it's really something that I've dealt with myself, and a lot of the women in the peloton have, whether they admit it or not. You see it time and time again through a lot of different people because you always think it's not going to be me. I'm not the person like, I'm hard. Like I can keep going. I don't need to do what they say. I can train harder than everybody else. I can, and then at some point, like the wheels start falling off, and whether they fall off completely or not is neither here nor there. And I felt it like when I got into cycling, like you say, it's an environment that like it's completely normalized to not eat. And actually a lot of people run away from having, I think, eating disorders by getting into cycling. Because as you say, it's covered up. I've been on rides with people and groups of males and females, and they joke and they're like, oh, I'm going to go on a raw chicken diet, or like as a joke, but it's like jokes like this, and they go on, and people are like, oh, but yeah, I don't need to eat that. It's not in my plan today, and they use it as an excuse to kind of run away from the fact that like they are slightly disordered in their eating. And it's such I know that cycling in terms of power to weight is important, but I think it really, for me, you join the teams and you have for sure it's all the riders. So you have really professional riders like Pauline, and she is so well monitored. She has everything on offer to her. She has all the dietitians. She knows what she's doing. She's done it before. She knows what's a good weight for her, what works for her. But the problem in that is, and then you have a little kid like me who got into cycling at 20, and she spends all of her rides riding with guys who tell her that their body fat percentage is 7%. And coming from a non-sporting family, no background knowledge, and you think like, oh, that's what I need to do. That works for them. That's what's normal, right? And so then you join these teams, and they're like, wow, your power is amazing. If you just lost another kilo, and it's always just a little bit more and a little bit more, and before you know where you are, like as I say, you start getting weird things happening during the night. Your heart, you get heart palpitations. It's another effect of it. Your hair's falling out. You're exhausted, but somehow you're still running on these fumes. And then at some point, the fumes sort of start to run out. And you can only go so long. And there's a lot of riders who, luckily for them, they get injured and they're forced to rest for a little while. And then they come back and do the same thing again and again and again. Till maybe it doesn't work out at one point. And a lot of the girls they sign now are these young climbers that come through and they go really, really well for 2 years and then they just disappear off a cliff.
There must be a lot of pressure as well. Like it's one thing. When we talked about the fact that we were going to broach this, we both agreed that we don't want to make this personal or targeted towards any specific rider. It's not a conversation about what riders are. But one thing that you did mention is that some teams have the structures in place and the ability to monitor that and do it, I guess, within what would be considered relative safety, monitoring from health professionals and the like. And then other teams would not. But I think one of the concerns is that it becomes a bit of an arms race. It's great if the top teams are able to do it, but then that does, I guess, put pressure. That pressure must push down.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as soon as you almost get into it, it's the first thing, even when I started just riding for fun in New Zealand, some of the first coaches I ever spoke to, they're like, oh yeah, but once you hit 16, 17, you need to start losing your puppy fat. Now, it doesn't seem like those kind of comments will do anything, but when you hear them every single day, it's like you start to believe it. You put trust in the people around you and the information you're given, and it's like anything. If you go and ride with people every single day and they also have that same thought that that's how it works, that's what you need to do, and they are talking about that every single ride, of course, you believe it.
Yeah, well, it's like we said, it becomes normalized. I was on the ride on the weekend and my bunch we're not winning the Tour de France next week, but one of the guys there, this was the first ride I'd done. I've been sick for about a week, so I was feeling pretty good about myself. I did some exercise, so I thought, you deserve a brownie. And while I was getting that brownie, I saw a muffin as well. And so my eyes, I thought, well, why not? Treat yourself, So I got the muffin and the brownie and I'm sitting out there and a guy comes out and normally he gets a brownie and someone said, oh, why are you not having one today? And he said, oh, I've put on a bit of weight. Dude looks fantastic. I would kill to be in the shape that he is. But again, I'm sitting there enviously thinking, well, I'm chomping on my brownie and my muffin, but I'm sitting there thinking, I wish I had your body shape because he's skinnier than me. And I find as a cyclist, I'll be sitting on a train and I'll see someone who's super skinny And I just think, I wish I had that body
Yeah,
shape. It's like, it's so ingrained and it is normalized. And I think that's one of the things that really touched me in your post. Like, I fell into that because the guys that I was watching on TV, I was watching Andy Schleck and I wanted to be a climber. And I was just looking at that guy. And the only way you can get there is by completely stripping yourself. And we were talking about body fat percentages and things like that. Like, it does trickle down. How do you prevent that though? Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to physics, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's something that we've discussed about a lot in the team. It's really interesting because, there's nowhere where people are required, like, teams aren't required to provide you with that kind of information. Nobody, like, you don't need to know. Only when things start going wrong do you start to understand that, like, there's this thing called bone density, and that actually has a important impact on your life, but also your cycling and in terms of your hormones and everything else. And nobody's required to give you that kind of information. And also, there's organizations, which is one of the ones that we find the most interesting, like sport climbing. Now, females in sport climbing, they are required to give their federations a bone density scan, which a lot of the teams do when you are made to sign to a team, and give a blood test to show your hormone levels. And it's quite interesting because if they don't reach certain levels, they're not allowed to compete. And I know, like, a lot of people online and stuff, they're like, oh, well, that's just what it is. Cycling is just like that, and that's what you have to sacrifice. But it shouldn't be, because, there's some comments that have been thrown around, like one sort of mother, and she said, oh, as a mother of a high-level athlete, we do our best to keep our daughter healthy as possible, but it's about keeping her healthy for her sport, not real life. But this is real life. Like, what we do is real life. This is our jobs. And like a lot of people say, it doesn't last forever. So what are you going to do after cycling? I don't want to be the woman who's pushed around in her 40s by my dad who's 80 because I can't walk around anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's not fair on them either.
So but that's, at the end of the day, I guess it comes down to, and I think in the media there is some responsibility here, but where does the responsibility lie? Like, is this something that needs to be done? Is this something that the Cycling Alliance needs to have a look at before it becomes, because I think the chooks left the hen house when it comes to men's cycling. Like, that's something that's pretty tough to reel back. But I think this is something that is maybe something you could, using another metaphor, you could potentially put Pandora back in the box here.
I think it's something that, like, the UCI need to look at, and the Cycling Alliance, but also the teams themselves have got to want it, because it's like you say, a lot of people right now, they're like, oh, but the men's don't get this conversation. They don't get the pressure. Like, they're comparing, both Tour de France riders and Pogačar and Pauline, and it's like she's got a lot of stick from it, and no one questions, like, that Pogačar lost weight, and that's true. But the problem is they're two different sports still. Like, they're two very differently run sports, and the women aren't men. Like, we never will be. And it's that whole thing. You also can't train women like men, because genetically we're just different. We are, and we always will be. So I think, as you say, I think it's something that can be done before the sport completely explodes into what men's cycling is.
So next up was another one, and this might seem ridiculous, but again, Finn Fisher-Black, Red Bull rider, he's ridden for UAE, Visma bike, and I just remember thinking, am I out of my depth here? And yeah, I mean, look, this interview ended up being one of my favorites. It was a bit of a challenge. The internet in Europe is not what I thought it would be, or at least where Finn was recording. So there was a bit of delay in this one. So Paul Brahm had to fix that up in the edit. But there was one thing that came out of this that I felt like we really need to talk about because it did really well on the socials, and that was Pogačar apparently throwing a stage away. In your team at the moment, you've got yourself, you've got Roglic, you've got Hindley, and now Lipovic had a absolutely fantastic Tour de France. And then on top of that, you guys are bringing over Remco Evenepoel next year. You guys going to have the same issue? I mean, like you said, there's 3 Grand Tours and there's quite a few guys there that would like a crack.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And I think it's a difficult thing for any team that's kind of growing at this rate to kind of allocate races to riders. But I think, I know Lipo quite well, and I think he's also a guy that can work well with other people. He's not such a dominant personality. I don't know Remco at all, to be honest, but I think from racing with him in the bunch, I think he presents himself pretty well. So I'm excited to have him in the team. I think between him and Lipo, I have no idea what they'll do for the Tour next year, if they'll both go or if they'll have different focuses. But I mean, the GC team and our team, the climbers are definitely, that department's getting very busy. And yeah, I think the Grand Tours maybe will be a tough thing for the team to kind of allocate who's going where. But yeah, for me, I'm not bothered. I like to have a leader that I can really work for and believe in. And with Lipo and Remco, we have that. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing a Grand Tour with either one of them next year and seeing what we can.
I think Poggy handled the Tour de France really well, but he's always come across as this person that has so much energy, endless bounds, a bit like an Energizer bunny. And there was a bit of fatigue. Was that something that you saw in the background, UAE, or does this seem like something new and a bit out of the blue for you?
I mean, I only really raced with Tadej last year. So I did a couple monuments with him and then also Canada races. And it's something I think people don't realize so much is how big he is getting. And he's starting to kind of transcend the sport a bit. He's people who don't watch cycling know who he is now. And we noticed that, especially in Canada, we'd just be walking to a cafe and we're trying to form a bubble around Tadej so we can actually get to the cafe so people aren't stopping him. I mean, yeah, it can come across looking bad, the interviews towards the end of the Tour, and then also I saw the pictures lately with the jersey he's been wearing. But there is a part of me that kind of understands, maybe he is getting a bit fatigued from that side of thing, from being really at the top for a number of years now and kind of being maybe one of the biggest cycling personalities we've ever had. He's starting to grow bigger than the sport. I mean, yeah, maybe it is getting to him. Maybe needs a bit of rest before next season. But I think, that fire in him is always kicking. The thing is, as soon as the flag drops, he loves racing. Yeah, I think that flame's never going to go out.
Yeah, well, I think, people will talk bad about the dude and, he's looking really jaded. The guy has had such a long season. He started in the classics, he's crashed in Strade Bianche and come off, and I'm pretty sure that's the one that he crashed in and then ended up going and taking the win. He then comes through the Tour, wins the Tour de France. Is he the best that we're ever going to see?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think, I think it's clear now, especially 26 or whatever he is. He's already done more than what most people can't even imagine. So I think he could stop now and be already the best we've ever seen, in my opinion. But I think he's still got probably quite a lot more left in the tank.
Yeah, and that must just be, I guess, potentially frustrating, but also a bit of a challenge, how to crack him. Is honestly what's exciting about coming into the Tour de France is how a team's going to have a go at cracking him. What was the Red Bull strategy to come with Roglic and Lipovic to try and sort of one to him, or was the strategy to go for the podium and see what happens? Did you get any insight into that? I know you were.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Lippo, he'd never done the Tour. He's also kind of bursting onto the scene at the moment at such a fast rate. So I think they couldn't really say to him, like, okay, we need a podium out of you. So I think the idea was to go there with Primoz as, the leader, and then Lipo as the backup card. I mean, I already knew it from the start. I'd just done Dauphiné with Lipo. This guy's phenomenal. So yeah, maybe he doesn't really back himself yet, but I mean, it's hard to when you're coming up at such a fast rate like this. Only 2 years ago, he was Continental or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, he's really special, and hopefully he starts to gain that confidence and can kind of go into next year, maybe fighting for more than a podium. But I think definitely this year, I think if you had told him he'd have a podium by the end of the Tour, he'd be pretty stoked with that, and something he wouldn't have been expecting, or the team. I think it was more of a going into the race with no expectations and see what we can do. But yeah.
The team must be stoked about it too, because if you take Lipovitz and his, I think it was second in Paris-Nice, third in the Dauphiné, and third in the Tour de France, they are huge wins to add to the season.
Yeah, exactly. For the team, I think it's special because they've found Lipo from, he's a baller rider. They've developed him. They found him, from an Austrian continental team. And it's not like they've gone to another team and bought him out for a lot of money. So, yeah, they've found him, brought him up slowly, and now he's really starting to pay dividends for that. And I think the team definitely sees. I mean, it's clear you can see a good future in this guy. Like maybe he can win a Grand Tour even next year. I think, for the team, it's really special. They've got their own rider and developing him towards some pretty cool things.
So is that what attracted you to Red Bull? So you've moved from UAE. You've moved for, I mean, you stated it was for more opportunities at major races, but what's the development structure like? Like you're saying, they've plucked Lipovitz out of an Austrian team and turned him into someone who is, well, he's not a genuine podium threat. He is a podium finisher in the Tour de France. And what's the development like at Red Bull? What's that system?
Yeah, I mean, I already saw, it was a space where I thought I could grow. And already this year, I feel a lot more, capable than the last couple of years, just from getting that backing from the team and really getting my own opportunities. Like I came to the team and I was really keen on leading, and Down Under and UAE and Poland were my 3 big races of the year, and obviously the Vuelta now. And they gave me that full support, and I went to those 3 races with leadership to try and see what I can do. Obviously Poland was cut off by a bit of illness there, but the first couple of races I was really happy with, and can hopefully grow on next year. But for me, it's about like baby steps, like first. I mean, I'm not ready to lead a Grand Tour or anything, so that wasn't what I was looking for, and I don't really feel like I'm competing with these guys like Lipo and Primoz and Remco. I'm really focused on going for these lower level World Tour races, and this where the opening was in this team. And I don't think that'll change next year either, and hopefully we can go back to these races and try to win them, and that's the goal.
So the next up was Kim LaCourt, and there's a bit of a theme here, but I remember going into this one just thinking, I'm going to speak to someone who's worn the yellow jersey, and that was nuts, and it still is nuts. And similar with Kim Cadzow, Kim LaCourt was genuinely just a nice person. I left really impressed, and I mean, hell, you can only really talk about one thing when you talk to someone that is in the yellow, and that was the process to get there. Stage 1, you attacked across to Pauline Ferrand-Prévot at the close of the stage, and then Vos is sniffing at your wheel. She gets you one up in the sprint, and you're in a bit of a Visma sandwich there. But you're second on GC in the Tour de France at the end of stage 1. What is going through your head on the night of stage 1?
Well, I mean,
I did aim to go for the win on that day. It's a really good course for me. It suits me really well, but it also suits a lot of other riders. To be fair, there was a mixed emotions. There was disappointment, but also, yeah, really cool because you always go into a race with high expectations because you want to do well. But it's one thing to say I want to win and I want to do well, but it's another to kind of do it and get this position I was in. But also the way I did it. I didn't actually see Pauline go. I was too focused looking in front of me or like on my wheel. I was following Demi and I was thinking that's the best wheel to follow. But I was so focused to looking at a back wheel that I didn't even think of lifting my head and looking ahead. And once I did it, it was a bit late. I was like, holy shit, she's gone. Like no one went for it. So then I had to go. I had no choice. And I just went full gas from there. And honestly, I had a piece of myself was thinking, shit, I'm going to win the stage. But then when we came around the corner and I saw someone on my wheel and I saw it was Maya, and I was like, oh, shucks. Okay, well, I mean, I could have said if I went to Pauline straight away, it wouldn't have changed the end of the race because Mayan is just faster. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So my position of second would have probably still been the same. So I can be proud of that. I mean, I couldn't beat Mayan on the course on a finish like that. So yeah, of course I was super proud, but at the same time, it obviously puts the pressure because you come into the tour. I was a little bit of an underdog. Yes, of course, we went in saying we're going for GC and all of that stuff, but I've never been at a Grand Tour on form going for GC. I've never been at a Grand Tour with high hopes. Giro last year was just to kind of see what I can do. Then the Tour last year, I was sick. I wasn't doing well, and I wasn't even the GC rider, so I was just as a domestique. So this year was, like a bit of a statement saying, oh shit, okay, well, I do belong here. I'm on good form. Clearly, there was a bit of gaps with the other GC riders. So, of course, I was in a good headspace and it brings a bit of confidence for the rest of the tour.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then stage 2, Garcia wins. Again, if you haven't watched the highlights, go back and watch the highlights for this entire tour. But stage 2 is a cracker. Garcia goes away. And she is sort of the last person heading towards the line. You got the peloton chasing down like a pack of dogs. And it's just, I started getting goosebumps as she crossed the line. And then, probably for you, the coolest story here is the fact that you cross and you're in the yellow jersey. So being a huge advocate for African cycling and for representing cycling in smaller nations, how did you process the size of that achievement?
Well, I think it was pretty clear on the videos. I did not process it at all. I was like, nah, it can't. I mean, we had a plan for that stage. So again, I kind of finished the stage disappointed because I was supposed to attack like 600 meters to go and I didn't. I was just scared just because I've never been in this situation, this position, and I'm just scared to try.
Totally. Yeah.
And when I crossed the line, I honestly didn't think I was in yellow. I calculated the seconds wrong and I was just like reading my own world. I went to my team and I was like, hey, okay, drink my keto, drink my cherry juice. I was like, okay, where's the bus? And they're like, no, you're not going to the bus. Like, so yeah, of course it was a huge shock. Because we did go into the stage wanting to take yellow back, well, wanting to take yellow, wearing yellow. I didn't really research that before the tour. It wasn't really a goal for me to kind of get that. Of course, it's special. It's amazing to be the first one, but it wasn't something that was in my mind until I actually got told I was afterwards, after I was already on the podium and all of that. So yeah, it's a very special feeling doing it, winning a monument, first African rider, now the tour. It's really special to be able to open the door and to open, the opportunities and the dream for African riders that it is possible. And, I wish that when I started cycling that there was kind of that inspiring figure that could inspire me to kind of pursue that dream, because maybe I would have not stopped back then. But I'm glad that I could be that person, and I'm trying to be that person for future generation African cycling.
Yeah, and I think it can be glossed over, but you become a role model. Cadel Evans in Australia, when he won the Tour de France, that was a moment, like a monumental shift in Australian cycling. And it did, like, I know for a fact that inspired a whole bunch of generations of cyclists to actually believe that, for Australian cycling is something that you can reach the top step of. What's the chatter in Africa? What's it like? Have you returned to Mauritius since? And what does it mean to the people of your home country?
No, I've not been back after the tour. I'm planning to go back after the season for sure. I need to to go visit. Yeah, it's been crazy. I think the support I've had has been absolutely mental. I think you could have seen also on the tour that the Mauritian flags were everywhere. People that were not even following the sport are now huge fans of cycling. I think I've inspired a lot of young riders to pursue their dreams. I have friends of mine that now believe in it more than ever. And I'm happy to be in this position where I can maybe start helping, opening some doors for them with contacts or whatever the case is. Of course, now I'm still focusing on my career. I'm trying to still build a name for myself and a foundation in this world of cycling. Once I'm a bit more settled in that term, in that sort of way, it's my dream to help the next generation come up. But yeah, it's been crazy. I've heard a lot of stories of Mauritians wanting to renovate a velodrome in Mauritius and kind of name it under my name, and they want to build a statue or, like stuff like that. But they're just so passionate. They're just so passionate and they're so excited to just see the flag on the World Tour stage. And it makes me so excited to just want to perform even more.
Yeah. It must be infectious, but also it must be a bit of a heavy cross to bear. How do you deal with, you're essentially sort of carrying the hopes of a nation? Has there ever been points where it sort of felt like it's something that you wanted to run away from or something you wanted to hide from a bit?
I mean, like I've said, like at the Tour de France, the pressure and all of that has been surreal, but in a way where it makes me proud to be part of such a special little country. I mean, we might be super small, but it makes me proud. And I want to actually, I was saying to people that I'm nervous to go back to Mauritius because I don't know how it's going to be, because I went back in May after Liège and it was already quite hectic. I mean, not in a bad way, in a very positive way. I'm just not used to that attention, but I do want to go back, and I wish I could meet every single one of them and shake their hands and thank them for the support, because I can't reply to every single message I receive on the social media platforms or by message. But I just want them to know that I've seen it. I've seen all the messages. I've received it, and it pushes me. It motivates me to push even harder. So no, I actually don't want to run. I don't want to run away from it. I actually want to go and kind of almost jump into their arms and say thank you, because their support means a lot.
So the next one was maybe a bit of a weird follow-up after someone that had worn the yellow jersey. I had no idea who Byron Munton was until One Movement, his agent, sent me a reel that had Byron winning his first pro race. And I did a bit of research into it. And this dude had a really, really important story that I felt like I just had to tell. So I had to get him on as a guest. And Byron was really gracious with his time and also talked about something that must have been really challenging in regards to his sister, Jess, and I guess it would be called an accident, but a road incident with a drunk driver who hit Jess and caused life-changing injuries to his entire family. And so Byron and I had a chat about that. And fair warning, this one is a bit sad, but as I guess on the flip side, or some positives here, Byron, since this, has gone on to represent South Africa at the Rwanda World Champs, which was huge for a South African. And then also he has just signed to Modern Adventure Pro Cycling, the new American outfit. So the future looks bright for Byron and his family. You're having a pretty good year, and your sister Jess is also having a cracking year. So Jess, your younger sister, she's gone on the bike as well, and she's the national TT champion, 3rd on the road, 5th at Youth Commonwealth Games for the time trial, and 4th on the road. And then she has what the newspapers call at the time an accident, but I don't think it's right to call that. Jess is the victim of a horrific crime. Can you take us through what happened there?
Yeah, so that morning was actually it's quite a hard one. We were the night before, she was complaining at me because I'd not changed her tire yet on her bike. She wanted her bigger brother to do that for her. Yeah, so in the morning it was a bit of a rush, and yeah, but she left a little bit not in the best of moods with me because I didn't change the tire, which I did do before she left. But she met up with a group of friends who they went out, had coffee, and yeah, on the way back, they had left. My parents and I were actually just out taking a walk, and we got a call. Obviously, a call you never expect or can imagine. And yeah, we were, I think, maybe 4 kilometers away from the place where we were staying, so we couldn't even just jump in the car and go straight to the scene of the accident. So yeah, I jumped, I ran home, grabbed the car, got my parents, and yeah, so basically she was riding in the shoulder of the road. In South Africa we have like a emergency lane where it's the yellow line and then the shoulder. And yeah, car came over the rise and drifted into her lane, and yeah, took her out from behind.
And am I correct in saying that was a drunk driver?
We cannot say drunk because they did not test within the 1.5 hour period.
Okay.
They came. He was intoxicated, but they came really late with the breathalyzer, and he tested in just under the limits. But after 2 hours and taking in a few, the equivalents of a Gatorade, yeah, he had that in the car, so he was downing those to try, obviously, get his system a bit clearer, and that led to them not being able to take him in for blood tests. So he was free to go from the side of the road, and yeah, till today he was supposed to have a court hearing a few weeks ago. It did not appear for that, and the last I heard, he was supposed to appear in court on the 5th of September, and yeah, still have not heard anything from that.
And how's the family at that time? Obviously, that's like you said, it's a phone call that you never want to receive. How does the family rally around Jess at that time?
Yeah, so basically, for us, the world basically just stopped. My parents, the business they had to put on hold. We had already planned on moving to Spain before the accident had happened. All the plans that we had made as a family just, yeah, everything put on hold. Yeah, it was a really difficult time. She spent 4 to 5 weeks in the ICU. Could actually be longer. I think it was closer to 2 months. It's not, yeah. Like, I know we suffered, but I know she suffered a lot more, and yeah, that was the hardest thing to see. She had such a bright personality. Everyone loved her, and when she got on a bike, she was just a absolute machine. So it was really hard seeing that.
So the next dude that I had on was Wout freaking Poels. Domestique pulled Wout Poels, and I've wanted to make that joke. Actually, I probably made that joke in the podcast. But anyway, Wout Poels, man, and we had to talk about what it was like to be at the Vuelta on that last stage. What was it like in Madrid, that last day, that one that got cancelled? What was it like on there?
Yeah, I mean, we knew already that it would become very difficult to finish in Madrid. Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird day. It's also really a shame. I always feel really sorry for the winner, for the people who won the jerseys and all these other things. That you cannot celebrate it properly after 3 weeks of racing. You put so much hard work into it, and then you don't have a little party. So yeah, that was a really weird day. You always start really late, and then we started, and after 50, everything got cancelled, and you have to go with police escort to your hotel.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah, that is extreme. What was the chat in the peloton coming into that during the race? There were a few riders sort of coming out and saying things, but it was, for the most part, pretty closed ranks. How was the vibe in the peloton? What were people saying during the race?
Yeah, it was a little bit of weird vibe sometimes, because some days it went without problem, and some days it was like just a big mess, like the stage in Bilbao, stage that Egan Bernal won, and Madrid.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. I think I tried to focus not to think too much about it. I was like, it comes day by day and we will see what happens, because there's not so much you can do. But of course, in the back of your head, you are thinking about it. You speak on the table about it, what maybe can go happen. And it was a little bit of weird for Vuelta.
Yeah. Yeah. And were you at any points, I guess, scared?
Nah, I was not really scared, but the vibe and atmosphere was getting a little bit into that. Like, you saw these people, they were so angry, and I understand they're angry, but yeah, it was almost like, I was like, yeah, why are you so angry to me? Like, I think I also want to have the best for the world and everything. And it was really like a little bit an aggressive vibe.
Mm.
And that was not really nice to go through.
Yeah, no, I get that. It was not the, I guess, the welter that I heard, for example, that Jay Vine, like you were saying at the podium, I think his kids had already, like his wife and his kid were in the area and they'd already gone back to the hotel. So when they did that impromptu podium, sort of, they missed that. So I think he was quite upset about that. But then on the flip side, I think you have people like Jonas Vingegaard who maybe don't like the ceremony so much. He seemed pretty happy to sort of have a bit more of an intimate one.
So my wife and my son also wanted to come, but I said, I better stay home, because I have the feeling we're not going to finish in Madrid, and I prefer you guys are not standing in the middle of that. Yeah, that says already enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was definitely one that'll go down in history. What was it like to have, I guess, the eyes of the world on what is probably the smallest? I think it's fair to say the Vuelta is the smallest of the big 3 Grand Tours, but I think out of, the Tour de France always gets the most attention, but the Vuelta probably got a lot more than it normally does because of those protests. What was that like?
Maybe publicity-wise, but the Vuelta was great.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if they were really happy with the outcome of it. Yeah, it was a little bit unreal. I was just going through it like day by day, and a little bit like what I said before. I didn't try to think too much about it, but you're all the time reading it in the news, and well, a little bit of weird experience. Not how you want to do a Grand Tour, because you train so hard for it and you just want to perform and you want to be your best. And then you have all of these things around it that where you cannot control, and it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, and it is a challenging one. So the next guest was supposed to come a bit earlier in the bill, but we'd had a podcast organised. My alarm was set for 2 a.m. Fantastic. And then I woke up to an email, a text message, and an Instagram message from this person from hospital to say that they were unable to do the interview. And I think that just speaks for the person that Sarah Gigante is. And we had to talk about the thing that was made a lot of in the media, and that was Sarah's descending skills, or the media might argue lack thereof. I would argue the media has never tried to follow people like Cassia Niewiadoma down a descent. So a topic that comes up in the media across the Tour de France is descending. I think it's important to preface any discussion on this topic by saying you're not a bad descender. You're just racing against some of, the best descenders in the world. I mean, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, for example, multiple mountain bike world champion. So you're literally up against the best. But
wait, you have to say Pauline, multiple mountain bike world champion. She wasn't like the best descender either. I mean, she's a lot better than him, but she was getting like put under pressure by Cassia and co. Like, they are incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the reporting on that is unfair. But with that, what do you think is the biggest thing holding you back in regards to your descending? Yeah, I know you've been doing some training or some specific coaching on it. Is there anything that's come out from that you feel like you need to work on, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just race experience because, I don't really get the chance to race down mountains in pelotons that often. And I've had really limited race days. I have been pro for actually quite a long time now, but, if you keep having 6 months off between drinks, then you'll still be thirsty. You know what I mean? And then, like, I remember Swiss, I was like feeling so rusty. I hadn't gone down a mountain in ages. I'd just come off Zwift because I dislocated my shoulder in May. So I'd pretty much just been lifting, and then suddenly I really underestimated the difference. But the race wheels, I mean, maybe it just sounds like excuses, but I think just things like getting used to the feel of the really deep dish race wheels that we race on compared to, my tiny training wheels at home. That was a really weird feeling. Like, I felt like, oh, do I have a puncture? Like, it's tubeless versus clincher and all differences like that. And also, just not, speaking of handlebar sizes, like just bike setup and like not being able to reach my brakes properly in the drop. So I think that's something we adjusted after Swiss and before the Giro, and I already felt like that made a huge difference. Of course, I still have to then get used to riding in my drops because for years I just haven't been able to reach the drops that comfortably. So I just end up going in my hoods because then I can actually brake.
Is that because of the artery?
No. It's not to do with arteries. It's just the brakes are far away and I have little hands. And in the drops, it's just harder to reach the levers. So just little things like that, just getting used to the equipment that you use on race day, trying to, I mean, I don't have the race wheels at home, but trying to make your training bike as close to as possible as your race bike, things like that. And then, the main one is just practicing racing in a peloton, which you can only do in races. It's just, I think all the media frenzy came because my climbing is already super good, not to be, that doesn't sound very modest, but, just
you don't need to be.
my climbing and my descending, there's a big gap, but it's not necessarily just because I'm like the worst descender in the world and that I'm slower than your grandma, which people love to tell me. It's not because I'm that bad. Like, I am, tons of room for improvement, but it's mainly the gap that is so noticeable. So if I was just less good at climbing, then it would be okay. Like I wouldn't, be on every commentator's lips about my descending, but it's just really noticeable. But part of that is it's nice. It's because I'm good at something else, So I hope that I can just keep improving my descending, and I mean, maybe it's easier to improve your descending to be average than to improve your climbing to be super good. I don't know. I hope so. So anyway, I just keep trying my best, and
If someone told me that all I have to do to win a Tour de France is get better at descending, I would take that. 9 times out of 10. That's not a terrible problem to have. So yeah. All right. So next up was Niamh Fisher-Black. And look, sorry if you're watching this on YouTube. I don't know what has happened to the video, but the video of Niamh is cactus. It's just not there. So you've got my ugly mug, and then nothing. So with Niamh, I felt like there's a lot that you could ask her about, but anyone would probably want to ask her about what happened on SD Works in 2024 in the Tour de France. And that's exactly what I did. So here's me asking her, what the actual hell went on there? So I think the point where you're talking about the media hyping things up a bit more than they were was around that 2024 Tour de France, where the media narrative was that the SD Works team is eating itself alive. What was
Yeah.
it like on the inside? What was actually going on during that 2024 Tour de France? Was there a where there's smoke, there's fire sort of situation, or was this just completely a red herring?
I mean, I think it was blown way out of proportion. There was not. I mean, we spent the whole sort of 10 days or whatever to get there, and there was never a problem. I mean, we didn't have any internal ongoings in the team or anything. We all did everything that we could actually to make sure Dami could win that Tour de France, and I knew also for myself I was there solely for that reason, to help her. I hated the fact that the media came out and told me that I was a bad teammate and everything, and told my other teammates that they were bad teammates, and I hated that. It was an honest mistake that we didn't see her for a long time in that crash, and we didn't know the situation, and I was also in the crash, so I was behind it all. I also couldn't help. It's funny how people like to put on a story that's maybe not so much the real story.
With Demi, she copped a lot of flack in that Tour de France, and then this Tour de France she's moved to FDJ and has again copped a lot of flack. Why do you think there is this desire in the media to cut her down? Is it a tall poppy syndrome sort of situation? Is it the fact that she is a dominant female rider? What is it about Demi Vollering that seems to put a target on her, whether fairly or not?
Yeah, I don't. It's true what you say. She does have a lot of target on her, I think. But I do think there is a sense of that, and I think of tall poppy syndrome. I think there is a sense of it in all sport. Actually, it's a little bit default nature of some humans, I think, and I think the competitive nature. I think we even see it in the men with Poggi and Remco. People always like to point out things that maybe they do wrong or something. I don't know, but Dami is an incredibly talented athlete, and she's won a lot of really great races. So it's normal that she receives a lot of criticism, I think, and she's also got one of the biggest following of all women and in the media. So having known her as a teammate and being friends with her, I know she takes a lot of pressure from that, and also I think she has her own struggles, like dealing with it all. But yeah, I think it speaks to her as a person because she deals with a lot.
I find it interesting, just genuinely. I don't speak Dutch, so I don't know what she says in the Dutch press, but from what I can see, she has not said anything. Like, normally people that attract this much criticism have come out and said something stupid or something arrogant or something along those lines. And I don't feel like Demi has ever done that, but yet she seems to be treated as if she has. It's a bizarre thing. And I personally wonder how much of it has to do with sexism and the fact that she is a successful and confident woman in a sport.
Yeah, there's maybe something also to do with it, because she's also very open in her media, so there's probably opens her up to more criticism.
Yeah. Hey, so after Bas, we chatted to another rider, and this rider was an American riding for Trek, and his name was Cole Kessler, and he's absolute top bloke, and he's again joining Byron Munton. Actually, it was really unfortunate. The timing of this episode just didn't work out. Cole had even told me afterwards that he knew what team he was going to be on. His contract with Trek had come to an end. He knew what team he was going to be on, but he couldn't tell me because it was embargoed, because the team hadn't even been announced yet. And of course, that ends up being Modern Adventure Pro Cycling, the same team as Byron. So I've talked to two people from this team that didn't exist at the time. But yeah, we had a chat about what it's like trying to, in regards to youth development and what that journey was like for him. So the idea going to a potential or hypothetical 2026 would be to build a team around Dylan Groenewegen for the Tour de France. Is that the goal or the idea there? Is that how you're conceptualizing a stage win?
Yeah, but that still means that you have some punchy stages as well. I saw, like, for example, Montmartre stage, with Lucas and other riders.
that doesn't exclude others. And for example, the time trial with someone like Niklas, of course, maybe you have other opportunities as well. But I think a fair shot with Dylan, 6-time stage winner in Tour de France, I think that gives us a real opportunity of getting close to good results within Tour de France.
And with Dylan, I think it's easy to look at his 2020, his last Tour de France, and criticise it. But at the same time, Jayco didn't prioritise him as a rider. They came with a very mixed team to that tour. So, yeah, I guess with a good lead-out train and a focus, I mean, he's demonstrated, like you said, 6 times Tour de France winner. That's the experience to do it. Let's go back to the team. So the team isn't just sort of a lot of the other teams, you know, Visma, Lisa Bike, Intermarché, Wanty, UAE, XRG now. It's essentially whatever sponsor can come on gets the naming rights. You guys have gone with Rockets, and that is the brand. So are you trying to build a cycling team that feels more like a football club? And how does that work in the current cycling business model?
Yeah, there is a whole idea about the Rockets. Of this year, it was called Unibet Tietema Rockets. It was a transition from Tour Tietema, what was the YouTube channel where everything started, with the transition towards the Rockets. That's also why my name was a placeholder. And now with Rose stepping in, it will be Unibet Rose Rockets. But Rose are like the Rockets part that will be there. That's like fixed. And that also, if you look at our jersey and our logo that we have on the jersey, that's the Rockets logo that we have. I think this is also something that if you start from scratch, you have the opportunity to create the team you would like to have. And I think with our media and our YouTube channel, people really saw the potential of, and we also explained them the reasoning behind and the value of creating this. Maybe on short term, you would like to have your colors of your brand or your sponsor on the jersey. But we really explained, okay, maybe in the long term, we will have maybe way more fans. So even on short term, it seems like you create more value. In the long end, if we are the most followable team within the peloton, or we have the biggest fan base in the whole peloton, then it's way more valuable than having every year another jersey or having another name. So yeah, we started this, and I think it's going super well. And now also with Rose stepping in, like the name is not changing, the colors will not change, and I think that's pretty unique. Like personally, I hope other teams will follow in the end. They all have some kind of nicknames already, with the Wolf Pack, with Band of Brothers, with Yellow Bee. But it would be super nice if in the future you have more, really team names that are going or being there forever.
So the next interview is one that it had actually been in the works for a little while. We had it all teed up with the time, and it was just after the Tour de France. And of course, I get a message and an email and an Instagram message and a WhatsApp message to notify me that they're in hospital. And I just remember thinking, like, I wasn't even disappointed. I just remember thinking, that is so above and beyond. Like, if I ended up in hospital with a fractured pelvis, I just wouldn't even bother messaging. Like, I don't know, my publicist can deal with that. I don't have a publicist, but like, you know. Anyway, Sarah Gigante, absolute legend. And it was such a privilege to talk to Sarah. Do you feel that you guys are being thrown into the pro ranks too early? Or do you think that is helpful in your development to be part of a dev team that is seeing you race with some of these top?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think, first off, really nobody should be going straight to the World Tour out of juniors. I just think it's a bad idea in general. You don't see too many guys going straight from high school into the major leagues and pitching in the World Series as an 18-year-old. That's just unseen. But you see guys as 18-year-olds racing in some of the biggest races in the world. And it's just...
I mean, Paul Sexas is 19. Kat Ferguson is also, I think she's 18 this year. So last year she was racing, that would have her as I think you can't race at 17.
Yeah, but I think she did do like half a World Tour season as a junior after Worlds.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that works. To be honest, I think the women's side of cycling is a bit different because they don't have that development pathway as under 23s. It's just either Conti or World Tour or Pro Conti, but there's no under 23 level races or anything aside from World Championships and Euros, I think. But yeah, for the men's side, it doesn't really make sense. Like, I think it's always, even if you probably are going to be the most dominant under 23 rider as a first year U23, you should still do an under 23 calendar in an under 23 team, and then maybe you can race up a few races with the World Tour team to get that exposure of how it looks to race in a pro peloton. But it also, in that note, it can be good. Like my first year at Israel as an under 23, I did a lot of races with the pro team, and it was cool to see how the races worked, but I was just on the front from kilometer 0 pulling. So I didn't really learn how to race my bike, you know? It's anybody can go sit on the front of the peloton and pull. So you don't really learn how to race. So I feel like I did lose a little bit of the development because I raced so much with the pro team. And then even when I was doing under 23 stuff, I was pulling in the peloton anyway, so. But I think it's the way that pro cycling is going, everybody is trying to get the next Remco, the next Pogacar. So they're signing these 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids already to the World Tour teams. They seem to be forgetting how endurance sports work, and that you get better as you get older. Like your engine grows as you get older, and they're like the longevity of the sport is just going down, and they're just using kids as 18, 19, 20. If it doesn't work out, ciao. You know, they're just kind of like numbers, and they're just trying to find the best guys. So I think if you were an 18-year-old, be cautious. Like if you're really good, maybe be on the conservative side and do 2 years under 23 before you make the jump to the World Tour.
The next up is a rider who, when she burst onto the scene, I think everyone just took a step back and thought, whoa, what have we got here? And a really impressive person is what? This person is Kat Ferguson, and Kat was really, really cool to speak to. I really admire Kat. I listened to her on What's Occurring, and I really liked that interview, and I just found Kat to be a really enjoyable person to talk to. And we talked about something that had come up earlier in the Tour de France with Kim Court-Pienaar, actually, and she had talked about the menstrual cycle and its impact. And so this was one of the few episodes where I actually remembered to ask the listener questions. I apologize. I'm like 99% certain I have undiagnosed ADHD and I just forget things. Plus, there's not a lot of time to do these. You would be surprised how quickly an hour goes when we've got as much as we want to talk about with these riders. So someone asked about the impact of the menstrual cycle on training. And so Kat and I had a bit of a chat about that. So the last one, and this is from Lex Spears. Now, just to confirm with everyone, because I know how this could potentially look, I have cleared this one with Kat. I'm not just throwing this on you, but it's from Lex. Lex wants to know, how does having your period affects your training and your racing?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question and one regarding the training that, if you do capitalize on that and sort of use it to plan your training or just your training, you can really benefit from that. There's a lot of talk about if you're training in sort of your second and third week of your cycle super hard, that's where you get the most sort of adaptations, and that is the time to do the hardest training. And sort of that week 1 and 4 of the cycle is when you should be taking it a bit more easy. And regarding racing, I would say, it's when you're in that week 1 of the cycle and you're racing, it's mentally, I'd say, the hardest. Physically, I would say it varies, but in general, most people find their performance is decreased. But I would also say that mental factor of knowing that you're on your period is probably a bigger factor than the physical. But then at the same time, hopefully all women in the peloton are potentially in that position and experiencing that as well. So yeah, there's always two ways to look at everything. So that's the way to choose.
When I spoke to Kim LaCourte, and I'm assuming that this is not, I mean, she said it on the podcast, so I don't think I'm revealing one thing from one team to another, but she said they're doing a lot of research into the women on the team and the way that they respond at different times to try and optimize training for each rider for their menstrual cycle. Is that something that Movistar is looking at for the women's team?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you would be stupid not to on a all world tour teams, because they have the resources. They just need more sort of specific people to research that. And I would say probably more women as well. Like in our team, we just have got a female nutritionist, which I think is super important, and also a female doctor now. So I think making changes like that also is really important. I'm not saying that a man can't know about the women's biology, but I just think as a woman, you're more inclined to know that in a profession like in the medical profession. So I think, yeah, we are putting a big drive on that next year, actually, also.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Fergo. And I haven't workshopped that. I'm just throwing that out as your nickname now. So I hope it is appreciated. Look, mate, thanks for your time. And what we normally do is we end with a bit of advice, something that you can impart on the future generations. What nugget of wisdom would you like to drop for anyone that's listening that thinks I would like to go the way of Kat Ferguson?
I would just say, just like everybody says, but keep enjoying for as long as possible. Don't take things too serious until you have to, until you really need to. Of course, you can be committed and yeah, you can do your training absolutely as it's described on Training Peaks. But at the same time, once you get home, don't lie on the sofa all day because you're scared of walking. Just enjoy your life, because the mental side of the sport is the hardest thing, and if that's what you need to do to go out and see friends instead of laying down on the sofa because that's what your coach says to do, then definitely do that. I think longevity should always be a priority. And then also at the same time, I think just like training hard, training like smart, I think is the best. So for sure, like quality over quantity any day.
Yeah. So after that was Marcel Kittel. Hope you kind of getting a sense of just how this year has escalated for me. And Marcel Kittel was someone, when I first started watching cycling, he was going about, and I just remember thinking he was so cool and so scary. So to be able to sit down and talk to someone who literally inspired me, not to be a sprinter, I suck at sprinting, but just to get into cycling, he was just a really cool personality at the time. And we talked about doping. Like, we're now at a point where I think cycling, people will throw accusations around, but it is the most tested. Is it, I guess, the black eye that you had to take in order to avoid getting knocked out kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was not a black eye at the body of cycling by because it will never go away. It will always be there as a topic. Like there will always be discussions about it. And but I absolutely think this was necessary. Hope that because it gave the opportunity to talk about it and really to analyze where this came from. And I think also this is part of this whole dynamic that we see now, the innovation and all the sports science that is there now in the sport came because there was like this empty space after all these doping revelations and systems that you had to fill with professional preparation and another way. So I do believe it was good, but I don't believe that cycling is clean now. Absolutely not. You would be very ignorant about the facts. You have to look honestly at the sport, also as a fan. And there will always be people who are trying to cheat the system. We just have to be sure that we really safeguard what we have and the progress that we made, and make sure that these are single cases and not a widespread doping system that we had in the 90s.
you're sort of suggesting you don't think that's an isolated case.
No, I think there will. I mean, look at the budgets, how they have gone up. Like the salaries that our riders can earn. That's definitely not a single case. Like, I'm not saying that this is widespread, but I am saying that there are riders who see an opportunity, who see also an opportunity not to cheat someone, but to end up with a better life. And I think that's also a fact. But I think we have to make sure that in a period where cycling seems to be going very easy, we have great stars, and sometimes I feel like nobody's really looking that much anymore for checking, and how that also the anti-doping system evolves, that we make sure this still happens, and that we keep checking and keep tracking what's going on also in the peloton behind the scenes.
After the Tour de France in the Australian on social media, it seemed like everyone was gunning for him, and then also honouring the merits of some amazing sporting achievements.
Yeah, I think that's also maybe that are also the times that we live in, that everything is very black or white. There's nothing in between anymore. That's also like how social media has a good, sometimes also a very bad influence on talks around certain topics, and especially about certain results of riders. I really believe that it is not up to the fans it's not up to the fans to make sure that the system works. Other people have to do that job. And what I see for the journalists and also for the fans, they absolutely have a right to say if they feel like I'm not sure if I can trust this. Then we should really see this as a sign. Okay, we have to check in and make sure that this is really like a valid result and we can really trust it. To be honest, for the huge talent, like the Vingegaard example you just mentioned, but also like what Pogačar is doing the whole year around, I do feel like this is very exceptional. But I think we also underestimate sometimes like where it comes from, like in times where this is the new normal. Not only with those two guys, there are many other very good riders who are doing exceptional things on a bike. Like this is in the whole peloton. People are doing amazing things on the bike. So what I want to say is, because of that, because we see more riders being exceptionally good, this can also be an indication that like the periodization of their training and racing planning, everything around it, the innovation, it all just comes into place on that day. So that makes them so good. So the ups and downs are actually they're not a bad thing. They can be a good thing. Like they have everything timed to perfectly to that one moment, and they are world class and even above. So it's a very difficult discussion to have around these moments, and I feel like we could be less strict sometimes, and there should be also the moments to celebrate the talent, but yeah, don't be naive. I think that's also
the hits just kept coming, man. After that, I mean, what's the point? It's just talk. Magdeleine Vallieres, the world champion. I spoke to a road world champion, and it was really cool. So, I mean, well, what do you talk about when you speak to a world champion other than talking about being a world champion? Let's jump back to Worlds. When you woke up in the morning of the race, what were you thinking? How did you think the day was going to play out?
Yeah, well, I had a few days of training before it in Wanda, and like over there was quite hard with the altitude and the heat and the air quality, and the 2 days before didn't go so well, so I was a bit worried on the start, but I had really trained really hard for it, and I knew that I was in peak form, so I tried to like not think too much about it. But for sure I wanted a big result. That was the goal. But the big result for me was I had like top 10 would be really nice. Top 5 would be like amazing. And then I needed to be patient the first half. That was the goal. And then with the girls that helped me a position. And then then the last half of the race I needed to like I wanted to be careful with the breakaways that went, try to make it in a good one, or just wait depending on the situation. I wanted to go a bit by feeling with it. And then, when the break went, I was in good position. I thought that seems not too much energy to like just go now. So I went and then committed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you picked the right breakaway. How did you know that was the one to chase? Like, I mean, there's a bunch of great riders in there. Niamh Fisher-Black, who I've had a chat to, Mavi Garcia, two fantastic riders.
Mm-hmm.
But there must have also been the temptation. I mean, all the stronger riders were further back. How did you know that that was the move?
Yeah, I didn't know. I took a risk. I really took a risk. And also, like, most of the girl in our group was not working. We were like, yeah, we were almost, no one was working. So then it was like trying to motivate everyone to work. But yeah, it was not, we weren't, yeah, like I said, not many were working. They were just sitting. So I was thinking, wow, now we're doing a lot of work for, all the favorites are in the back. Like, if they come back, then you're a little bit on the limit. Yeah, then maybe your top 10 is gone. Yeah, in the end, it's a risk. But like I said, my DS had told me before the race, just full commit. If you do something, commit. And then I was like, okay, well, then I commit. I feel good. So I just go, and I don't think about what can happen. Go. Yeah.
And you certainly did that. Niamh and you seem to be the ones that were agitating or motivating that peloton. Both of you seemed, I don't know, from watching it, I rewatched the highlights today. I watched the entire of that race. It was a fantastic race. But Niamh and you seemed almost yet quite frustrated. Like you were both putting in, really trying to shell the peloton. You both did that. But then you're going with Niamh up the final climb. Niamh's a fantastic rider. She's GC opportunities with Little Trek. You're dropping Mavi Garcia, also absolutely fantastic rider.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything going in your head at that time? Like, I can't believe I'm here. What's going on here? Or are you just locked in and going for that finish line?
Yeah, when she went, I was surprised I could follow and could stay. But yeah, like I said, I felt quite good, and I knew that I was really in good shape. So then I knew that normally I should be able to follow. But yeah, for sure, I look around me and I have Mavi and I have Niamh next to me. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm in the big league. I guess it's quite crazy to, I didn't expect, but yeah, I was really happy with how I could follow.
So then we had a Danish national champion. I think being a national champion is a bit like being a president. You're always called the president. So Rasmus Pedersen, he's the ex-Danish national champion as of this year. And we had a chat just about what it was like racing the Euros this year with Jonas Vingegaard and whether he was able to provide a little bit of an inside scoop into what was actually going on there. What was going on with Jonas? Can you shed any light in regards to that? Sort of was talking, not meaning this in a negative way, but he was talking up his level going into the race. And then it really looked like he fell on his face withdrawing. The crook, was anything going on there, or was it just a situation of just not having the legs?
I will say, like, every rider, even the best rider, except maybe today, has bad days, has bad legs, and has days where they're just not there. And Jonas believed in it. I could feel that, even though I don't know him. Like his suit was sewn in the day before by one of the staff members. But he was also honest that the Vuelta was hard on him. It really dragged on, and it was not an easy race to finish, especially not winning the race, let alone winning the race. There was nothing dramatic about him having to pull out that early, and I know he did everything. Like, he had caffeine gel just before the second lap. Like, he was dropped 15k later, so he believed in it for sure, 100%.
Yeah, right.
He did all the things he had to do to be at that level, to follow Tadej and Remco. But yeah, the Vuelta was hard, and the weeks after was also hard, having to get yourself back up and in shape. But yeah, it's for all cyclists. Like, we move on, we adapt, and I think that's just elite cycling. I guess it's just when you're one of the biggest guys on the start line, it's always, and your first race for the national team, it's always a bummer. It's also hard for Jonas to be in that situation, of course. But yeah, we move on, we adapt, we overcome.
What's it like lining up? You said everyone has a bad day except for Tadej, who seems to be able to go through the Tour de France with a knee complaint and still contest the last stage. What's it like as a national team lining up against the Slovenian team with Tadej Pogačar in the lead? Did you see opportunities having a look at Worlds? You know, he was very much isolated in that race. Did you see a way or a path towards taking Pogačar down? Are you able to share any of the strategies that maybe you guys had a chat about? Or
Yeah, like my job was to make sure that Slovenia wasn't in the break without us. And I kind of felt that Slovenia had the same strategy. Like it was kind of Belgium, us, Denmark, and Slovenia who was the three big teams. There's only 4 teams, and then France, of course. But France had maybe not the biggest leader like Remco, Tadej, and Jonas. It was a strong team overall, maybe the strongest like overall for them. We saw that in the top 20. Like, I think the French team was the team with the most finishes, without being sure. But it's like there's 4 teams, and we had to make sure that Slovenia wasn't there because we wouldn't take the front. Because of course Tadej is the overall guy for the win, and then Remco the same. And Belgium kept on attacking the first hour and a half or something. They really wanted to make a hard race and try to isolate Slovenia, make them close the gaps always. But then we had to jump in and help, of course, otherwise we would be on the back end. So yeah, we kind of let Slovenia do all the most of the work, because the strength lies in Tadej and not the numbers of the riders. And we saw that quite quick on the first lap. Like Slovenia was really dropping guys left and right, but it's just like in Worlds, he doesn't need riders. Doesn't matter.
No, it really
doesn't matter. So
yeah.
So we tried to not isolate, but that was also the thing with Skilmos. We had two cars to play, and if it was a group, Tadej, Jonas, and Skilmos would be in the 4-man group or the 5-6-man group, and they would be the only team with 2 riders. But yeah, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's how it is.
No, it's I guess it's just the thing with facing up against Tadej is you just have to, I guess, hope that he's having one of his very rare bad days.
Yeah.
So I mean, the next 2 really they blew my socks off. This was a back-to-back. This was one of those nights where you just, as an Australian doing podcasting in a sport that is European, it isn't conducive with a lot of sleep. And this was just one of those nights where I just accepted it was going to be a bit of a punish, because Visma Lease Bike was doing a media day and they gave me access to Matteo Jorgenson and Victor Campenaerts. So with Jorgenson here, we talked about what it was like with the Tour de France, trying to come up with some tactics to beat Poggy.
It's not likely you're going to beat him man to man in just normal situation. So we were looking for like creative ways, let's say, to beat him. And I think the example with Roglic and Jonas on the Grand On stage is a good one. But I think it was just an idea to like try to find one day in that first 10 days of the tour a weakness in Pogačar, and we didn't ever find it. He had a flawless, other than a crash, which we didn't take advantage of. He basically had flawless first half of the tour, so it didn't really pan out. And then I also, after the first rest day, I got really sick with a lung infection and just like didn't have really anything in the high mountains. So it also wasn't my role like to do GC the whole tour. It was really like be there in the first week to see if we could like find a situation that would help Jonas
with the Pogačar crash, because I do remember that happening, and I remember you guys sitting up. I think it was even Jonas that sort of was telling everyone we need to wait for Pogačar. But you would think that would, I guess, build goodwill with UAE, but it did certainly appear that there was quite a bit of hostility between the 2 teams. Did that play out in the Tour de France, or again, is this just something that the media, they're looking for every opportunity for something? They see Pogačar getting brake checked by the Visma car. They hear some clips and they try and make a mountain out of a mole.
Well, the brake checking thing was a huge like mistake from the car. Like we have Skodas with auto braking, and when you're driving to the start line in the races, like a lot of times somebody, like a fan will step out in front of you and they were following super closely on the bumper, and I think the car auto braked and he went like into the back of the car, which I think probably happens quite a bit in those start areas. At least for me, it's happened multiple times where I've like hit a car because it stops. But I think, I mean, there is tension between our two teams always in the Tour and also almost every race in the calendar, because we're always kind of fighting for a similar place in the road, and we're always like fighting against each other in the race. But I think in the Tour, it's like, you know, everybody, like all tensions are higher, and then also the media is trying to create things. But I didn't feel like it was anything different than any other bike race in the year.
The Tour, Vingegaard is coming in really hot into that Tour. He'd pulled an amazing TT in the Dauphiné that was so good that Pogacar even comes and lifts the bike up to sort of give it a test to see what's going on. How is the team feeling coming into the Tour? I know the hype around Vingegaard in the media was quite high, that it was going to be a really good competition. Was that what you guys felt? Were you excited for a chance to, I guess, take down Pogacar?
For sure. We, I mean, the Tour is the biggest race of the year, and with Jonas, he's won the Tour twice. So for me, always know that if you're lining up with him, you have a chance to win the race. I think like Pogacar's the type of competitor where it's difficult to find any kind of weakness in him. But I always, like, when we're at the start of a race, I always believe we can win. If you don't believe you can win, then there's not really a point in showing up and doing all the sacrifice and preparation before. So I definitely thought it was possible the whole time. And you really don't, like, the last couple of years we've seen Pogacar dominate, but you really never know what can happen in a race. And you have to keep, like, I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but you have to keep checking the boxes the whole time and like going through all the motions of the plan that you had set before, even if it seems futile, because you literally never know what's going to happen in a race with illnesses or injury, or even just you start feeling bad, you get really tired. Like, he's also a human being, so it's looked like he has no weaknesses, but you can't know until you race the race.
And then with Victor, we just sort of carried on that conversation in regards to tactics and maybe some of the frustration about Victor's tactics and, I guess, Visma's tactics. I think I meant to say Visma there, but I said Victor. I wonder whether anyone in Visma has ever got confused with that. And Victor believes that cycling is a big boys game. Here's his thoughts. The Total Energies manager, Bernardo, I think is the pronunciation, directly accused your team of unsportsmanlike behaviour. And I think that had to do with the fact that you were just on the front going as hard as you possibly could. There's also accusations of arrogance during the Tour de France. Does the team reflect on that, or do you guys take the belief that if you're ruffling a few feathers, that's good?
I have to say, in no way those accusations really come to us, or not, like we don't have the feeling other riders are not at all respecting us. I would say cycling is a big boys game. We don't, we're not asking politely to take the front. You just take the front, and it is what it is. You put your balls on the table, and in the end, it's the big boys riding on the front, and you don't hit the front by coincidence, or it's not because that's also like in the beginning of my career as a Belgian rider, I did still several races with Tom Bonen. You wouldn't push Tom Bonen to the side. This is a thing that changed in cycling. There's a certain respect, but it's not that that he has more right to be somewhere than, let's say, Bruno Armirail. It's just everybody fights for his position. Everybody, you need to be in the front in the important points. That's what racing is more and more about, because the level is so high. Your position in the peloton, especially narrow corners, technical descents, the position is so important. So being organized as a team is very important. And you can see that, we are quite good at this in organizing in those crucial points. We're really proud of that. But I have to say, I would more often hear compliments from other teams than accusations.
Yeah. Would that extend to UAE? So UAE this year, there was a few incidents that, at least as a viewer, suggested that some of that was boiling over. Is this the heat of the tour? Was the plan going into the Tour de France this year to get under UAE's skin? Or is this, again, just the media blowing something out of proportion?
No, I think for sure UAE was our biggest opponent. That's not a secret. Also, they won the Tour de France, and we can honestly say that Tadej was stronger this Tour de France than Jonas. But we tried whatever we know. We had to come up with surprises or unexpected initiatives to try and win the race, because if you have a competitor like Tadej, preferably you don't want to bring the whole peloton grouped and easy to the bottom of the last climb. And is there rivalry or competition between UAE and Visma Lease Bike? Yes, for sure. But I can also say we actually have a very good relationship. One of my better friends in and outside of cycling is Tim Welles. And he's maybe like, he's a little bit more like a winner himself than I'm. But in the Tour, we do a similar job. And of course, we ride elbow on elbow, and we don't give presents to each other in the race. But the same night, we're calling each other and talking about whatever on the phone. So it's not that we're under each other's skin, but we are professional and we want to win races.
So carrying on, these two people, the two team managers, CEOs that I've interviewed, they've got to meet each other. They've got to get in a room because they're so like-minded. Not in regards to how to run a team, I guess, but very much in regards to the things that cycling is doing wrong and the things that cycling is doing right. So Bas Tietema, Jonathan Vaughters, if you guys can get in a room and just have a chat, I think it would be really good for cycling in general. We talked about cycling's model. We talked about EF, Ben Healy, all of that, having a world champion in regards to Magdeleine on the team. But the main thing that we had a chat about, or the thing that I picked here, was Vaughters' idea that cycling needs to become a franchise system.
Two things you can do is create permanent franchises so that people will invest as opposed to donate, and keep the costs a little bit more under control so that cycling is an attractive and place that generates value for a sponsor, as opposed to like an overly expensive sort of bloated entity that you're like, I think I'll do F1 instead.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, you're right. We need to put the media rights thing aside. I need to start bringing notepad and pen because I've got so many follow-ups here. The main issue I think that we're talking about here is that I feel I was not aware that the NFL has a salary capping, but in Australia, all our sports function under a salary cap. And I agree with you. I think our sporting leagues are relatively competitive. You still, as you sort of label the Rockies, you still have the shit teams. But most teams, if they make the right purchases, have the opportunity to go and win our grand finals, your Super Bowls. But I feel like that's relatively unique in the sporting landscape.
No, they don't like it in Europe. They don't even like the idea of it in Europe. I mean, think about, like, to me, well, first of all, the NFL takes it a step further. You know, in the NFL, when they do their draft picks for their incoming, first-year professionals, rookies, the worst team gets the first pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all, but here's the thing is this is just about fairness. Let's throw the money equation out the window for a minute. When you sit down and play checkers with somebody, it's not that one person gets twice as many pieces as the other one. You play chess, and like in chess, like one player gets 17 pawns and the other one gets a bunch of like rooks and queens and whatever. I mean, that's not the way, sports it's, I mean, the European argument on this was just really ironic because it's like everyone thinks, that America as being capitalist and Europe being a socialist, but in sports, it's like reverse. Like basically America, like NFL it's socialist in some way, right? Like everything's just set up and the reason for that is it's a game. It's not, this isn't business. It's a sport. Like a sport should be, you should try to make the competition fair. And so in Europe, they're like, well, we don't want to regulate the free market. It's free market. If you can go find the money, you can, it's a free market. And it's like, okay, so you're abiding by this like extreme free market principle that actually kills the game and kills sport. I mean, I'm sorry, but ultimately being a little bit more Machiavellian, maybe a little bit more capitalistic, I would just say, no, the first thing we have to think of is like, it is not team versus team. It is not UCI versus teams or ASO. No, like first thing that needs to happen in cycling is we need to realize that our competition isn't one another. It is on the road, and it should be on the road, and it should be limited to on the road. In boardrooms around the world, in the business settings, in creating commercial value, we should function as one business. The NFL, the National Football League in the US, that is one business. Each of those teams is a franchise of that business. Football is it's a business. And, until cycling gets to that point, it's hard to, it's bluntly, it's very hard to explain to people that don't understand the sport. They'll just say, well, wait a minute, but then, but where's the league? And I'm like, well, there's not really one. And, oh, you've got this governing body. Well, are they really looking out for the commercial interests of the team? Yeah. No, they're not. They're like, not at all. The UCI actually pushes against the commercial interests of the teams, tries to hurt the commercial interest of the team, essentially. Like the UCI is competitive with the teams. And, so it's, we've got to get to the point that it's like, we just realize, hey, our biggest competition out there is shows on Broadway and reruns of Gunsmoke and any form of entertainment, other sports, obviously other sports, F1, tennis, etc. Like that's our competition from the business standpoint. And we need to stop looking at it as like, well, we just want to keep free market competition going amongst the teams. Yeah, but so the teams like cannibalize each other and slowly like rip apart the business model of each other. Like, no, we've got to look at it holistically and say, no, the teams need to stick together and go after other sports and go after audiences that are interested in other forms of entertainment. That's what we need to be doing.
And then look, the last person to talk to, this one, I feel like people might start thinking that we are EF aligned. So even though I love talking to EF riders, I feel like we need to make the next one because we've done quite a few EF riders. The next one was Mikkel Honore. I 100% have butchered that name, but I'm doing my best. And yeah, he was a really, really nice guy, super generous with his time. And there was one thing, as someone who had ridden at that Giro, I had to ask what the hell was going on stage 20. What happened on the Finestra? So yeah. Okay, like you said, it was up to the Finestra. Then there was a big flat. Wout van Aert waited for Yates in that section, sort of just drafting Yates, putting full gas through that valley. But there is a point where Carapaz and Del Toro, Carapaz can't shake Del Toro over the climb. They descend together, and then in the valley, they really looked like they just sat up. And it was a bizarre one from Carapaz, but I understand why Carapaz wasn't doing it because he needed. But what was the conversation? Did you have anything coming through on the radio in regards to the fact that they were just like, was Carapaz just waiting for Del Toro? It seemed bizarre, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second place.
Go
away.
Yeah. It makes sense. I see your side. Yeah, to be honest, we obviously didn't receive anything in the radio or anything. Thinking and watching a bit of the stage afterwards, I think everything that Richard did was correct, more or less. He won this Giro already in GC. He showed that he was racing just for the win. Honestly, as you know, in cycling, if you become second or third, it's not gonna
change anything, especially for somebody who already won the Giro and was he was a former Olympic champion and so on. So I think in the end, Richard, he just I guess said to Isaac, listen, the Grand Tour, the Giro is you who loses it if you don't go and ride as hard as possible. And I guess already at that point it was too late, because I think already on Col de la Finestre they were doing it was a bit the same, watching each other. And yeah, it was for sure one of the most bizarre moments of cycling this year, having to watch that. And yeah, I like Isaac a lot. He's a super nice guy and super nice rider as well. So, but of course, it would have been nice to go for the win there. But I guess somebody had to. Yeah, I guess he come into the States focusing mostly on Richard, because he was just a guy behind. But obviously, the number 3, especially somebody like Yates and a class rider like Van Aert, you can't just let up the road. So I guess there was just too much focus on one rider than maybe just focusing on winning the race now.
Yeah, it was a bizarre one. It really was Del Toro's to lose, and it certainly did look like he did just let that race go off the road. But I think he's only 21 from memory. So, I mean, I think a lot of that you can chalk down to Del Toro's probably looking at Carapaz and saying, well, you're the older guy. You've got the experience, Yeah, easy to sit for me. Easy to sit on the couch and criticize and throw my chips at the TV and saying, "What are you doing?" Much harder when you're in that situation. Yeah, totally. No, me neither. So enough with that. On stage 9. So I think the way I'd like to end this, first, what I'd like to say is a big thank you to everyone who has jumped on and listened across the course of this year. I've received a lot of positive feedback, but honestly, the most positive feedback that we get is the fact that we feel like each podcast is generating more views, more interest, and more conversations, and we are all about that. We hope that you appreciate us bringing you these interviews. A lot of feedback that we get is, there needs to be more independent journalism. This is our attempt to bring that to you. So we hope that you're enjoying these independent, these are interviews that we have sourced. So anyway, I guess that's sort of what we're trying to bring with this hot seat. And we hope, and the numbers would suggest that you guys are liking it. We hope that in 2026, people like it even more. I would like to give a personal shout out to 2 people. I would like to give a shout out to Josie Talbot, who was the first person that I interviewed myself on my personal YouTube page. She gave me the time of day to sit down and have an interview, and I really appreciate that, because that was what allowed Domestique to notice me, get me on as a host. So Josie, thank you so much. And also to Hugh Harvey, ex-RKR rider. I mean, can you be an ex-rider in an ex-team? But Hugh's back in Australia now, and he was my first interview with a pro rider, and that was with a previous podcast that I was doing, which leads me to the last person that I would like to give a shout out to, and that is Scott Barrow. Scott and I started off with a podcast called the Half Wheeling Podcast, and it was really fun. And Scott is the guy that gave me my break in this. He had the faith in me before Domestique even did. So I really appreciate you, Scott. I would like to thank all the riders that gave us time. It's a big thing. Like, it's an hour out of their day. And I mean, I don't know if some random podcast asked me to do it. So I genuinely appreciate all the riders for coming on. You've made my year. This year, in some ways, has been genuinely challenging for me. And I think if I didn't have this, I might have found it. Well, I know I would have found it even more so. So I genuinely appreciate it. It's given me something to pour a lot of love and time into when some things outside of here have been a bit tough. Yeah. If you're a rider and you would like to be on the Domestique Hot Seat podcast, please flick me a DM. And if you have any riders that you would like us to try and get on, hey, I mean, all you can do is ask. So chuck them in the comments. And cheers, guys, to 2025. Here's to 2026. Let's keep it rolling.